It took us a while. It took us about 10 years till we actually got married. Yes, we went to Vegas and we had the Elvis wedding.
So now I'll let the audience know that Stu, your husband, is an Elvis impersonator. So did he
Yes,
do
aspiring Elvis impersonator.
So did he do the ceremony and do the the song?
No, we had a proper Elvis, and I wasn't sure if I was so into Stu because the Elvis was so hot. I was like,
Can we go back on it? Wait a minute. You were so into, but the Elvis was so hot. So when he dressed up as Elvis, he was hotter than when he was normal. Is that what you meant?
No, I'm not talking about Stu at all.
Oh, the other Elvis.
I'm talking about the Elvis that did the ceremony. I was really into him.
Once you find a love like mine, you know that love is true. Understand, I'm just a man with the pork fat baby back blues.
Welcome to Gdayall, our podcast. This is episode 5, and in this podcast, we're going to be talking about featured foods in TV shows, movies, etc. My name is Phil.
And I'm Barbara.
And we're representing both ends of the USA, even though we're in Australia. So Barbara's from California. I'm from New York.
Proud New Yorker.
Oh, I don't know about being proud. My Mets ain't doing that good.
Can't hold that against you.
I know. So we're going to be talking about a lot of different things on the featured foods. But, last week we talked about Lunchbox, our Lunchbox podcast.
Yeah, that was good. My first friend and best friend Dolores came in and talked about it. Now, she enlightened me on a few things. I was always jealous of her Hardy Boys lunchbox that she had, but now I found out she used to hide booze in it, so I'm even more jealous.
It must be a pretty big lunchbox.
Well, we can't afford the big bottles when you're in high school, so I'm guessing it was more like a flask size.
Yeah. Well, anyway, before we really get into things, remember that if you like our podcast, you can subscribe to it on Stitcher, Apple, or Spotify.
That is correct.
So today's podcast will be the featured food theme. But the first food that was featured in the movie was from 1927.
Wow.
In a movie called Wings. And it featured the beloved Hershey bar.
Oh, I wonder there were no marketing degrees back then. I wonder who came up with that.
It might have just been something because it was a wartime movie. It featured Gary Cooper, and it also won the best movie of the year, which was before the Academy Awards. So, but Hershey bars were always synonymous with the GIs.
That's right, because everyone got a bit of chocolate in their rations, didn't they?
Yep, and they gave it away to the kids as they traveled. So to extend the hospitality or the good nature of the American. On this award for the best picture, this was done at the Roosevelt Hotel, or some people say Roosevelt. Yes. And if you've been to California, it's right across the street from the Chinese Theater. It used to be the Grauman's Chinese Theater. So it's right there. It's still standing today.
Yeah, with all the handprints, man's across the street from it. It's a bit of old Hollywood royalty wandering around that area.
And we have a special guest today.
Oh, yeah, a good friend to us, Penny Bunz, who is Canadian, and she's made her way over here, and she'll tell us more about that. And she's going to give us a perspective on U.S. candy and some Canadian candy as well, because, just across the border, things can be similar or extremely different.
Well, they always look down on us, literally, because they were up higher north. So, yes. Anyway, Barbara, what was your first experience with, with candy?
Oh, well, product placement. I have this, set yourself back to 1985. I had
way back, huh?
Way back, and I was in my 1986 Honda Civic, or 1980 Honda Civic. Didn't have a new car, and I had my acid wash jeans on, my white tennis shoes, and my Levi jacket, and drove myself to the movie theater behind the Good Mall. there's a bad mall and a good mall in every town. So this is behind the good mall. And I went there, and they actually, as part of the product placement for Back to the Future, they used Pepsi in it. And they had, cherry fountain drinks because it was the 50s. Now, I was able to get a big, giant cherry Pepsi, like out of the fountain with, my candy and my popcorn. I had to watch it. And I thought that was the most amazing thing. And then pretty close after that, they started selling it in the stores. And I've been a cherry Pepsi fan ever since.
Yeah, it does taste a lot different than cherry Coke. That's one thing for sure. It's more cherrier, if that's a word.
It is. I think Pepsi's a little bit sweeter, but and that can do it as well. But I've always been part of a Pepsi household rather than a Coke household. I know that's controversial, but
So you're in the Pepsi generation. But with describing what you were wearing, you sounded like Sandy. Sandy.
Well, I don't think Sandy had Reeboks though. But those clothes, I had my first job. I spent all of my money buying the clothes I was wearing that day. I do remember that.
Now, my first remembrance of, a placement probably goes back to, I don't know, Saturday Night Live. That's the only thing I could think of. Not Saturday Night Live. The movie, with John Travolta, right? And the only thing I could think of is White Castles. It has nothing to do with candies, but that was like the picture of White Castles. Been there so many times, and after you're going out to the clubs and all that, that was the place that was always open. I guess it was sort of like people who had Denny's in the neighborhood, which we didn't have Denny's, the place to go. I think I said that once before, when there's no place else.
They used to make burgers. I've only seen them in the movies because in California we don't have White Castles. But you could buy them frozen, and they were made at like little sliders, I think.
My first like old style retro candies that I remember was like the little wax bottles of soda, that had like cordial in it, and you chew the wax and you get the it got all over you. And then also on the same thing was the lips. They had these wax lips, and they still make these things,
Yeah, they tasted like peppermint.
Yeah, and you just chewed them like after you play with them, and then you end up chewing this wax stuff. I don't know what it ever did to us. And the other one was, the other two actually, was paper buttons. Remember the paper buttons?
I do remember those.
Tape, and you pick it off, and of course you're eating this awful candy with, that's 80% paper that's on the back of it.
Because the paper would never come off all the way. It's just like stuck to the back of it.
Yeah, and probably the first advertisement that I remember, with candy, and had to go run out and buy it because of the ad, was Good and Plenty. Good and Plenty. Charlie says, I love my Good and Plenty. I went out and bought Good and Plenty, right? Just because you could shake the box and make it sound like a train, like on TV, right? But the candy, I do not like licorice. And when I bit into it the first time, that was the end of Charlie and his Good and Plenty.
Well, that's unfortunate because I love it. But if you eat a whole box straight, your mouth goes numb.
You could poison somebody, which just on the internet, poison himself eating like 2 pounds of licorice.
Well, what a way to go, I think. I have a retro candy story with Necco wafers. Now, they come in sort of like pastel colors. There's like chocolate and like a lime flavor and all those. But my mother got the chocolate one, which is the brown Necco wafer. And we had a house painted that color. She went to the paint store and said, I want paint that color. So we had a Necco wafer house.
It's like a Willy Wonka house, right? Where's my house? Well, just look for the Necco wafer, right?
Lovely cocoa brand. And I also had lemon heads, which is another one. And I remember, and Johnny Leonardo gave me some for a Kris Kringle present.
Yeah, no, never had any of those things. That probably the only other one that I could think back in my childhood, other than like these other little silly candies with chocolate in and stuff that didn't have any name. It was just like these penny candies. Was the only other one that had a brand name was like Bazooka Gum. And
I had that as well.
And then, of course, buying baseball cards, and you try to chew the gum out of that, and it was like cardboard. But the baseball cards smelled good because they smelled like bubble gum.
Well, that's nice, and that adds to their value, I'm sure. And now we'll finish with our memories, and we'll start introducing some new memories because it's going to be time for our guest.
Okay, now for our special guest, I'd like to welcome Penny.
Hello.
Welcome, Penny. It's nice to talk to you.
Hi from Cheltenham.
What part of Canada is that from, eh?
I'm not sure.
So Penny, tell us your life story, 60 seconds or less. I guess that might be too much time.
Okay. Yeah, there's a bit of water under the bridge on that one. Well, I grew up in Canada. I was a trailer park kid, and then we moved the trailer to the country. I have really great childhood memories of all of us kids, like a gang of kids, like a dozen kids running in and out of every trailer and hanging off of willow trees and bike riding. Actually, it was really cool. And eventually moved back into town for when I was a teenager, and I lived there till I was 22, and then I started backpacking with my best friend, and we went to England first, and traveled through Europe. Met my husband, who was my boyfriend for years, which is the Australian connection, and eventually made it to Australia.
Now, did you meet Stu, which is your husband, over there in Europe, or?
Yeah, we met in London. We lived in a backpackers hostel for a year. It was one of those places where people just came and then they just stayed and partied and made money, and they went traveling and then came back.
My understanding, you only had like 2 channels up in Canada.
No, we have cable TV, but because my family didn't have a lot of money and my dad was too cheap, if you don't have cable TV, there's 2 channels in Canada, well, where I grew up anyway. So one is for Canadian content only, and then with a lot of Canadian TV shows. And then the other one, you might get you get a bit more American influence. But if you've got cable TV, like most people probably do, there's a huge American influence.
So you would get the ads or just stuff in the show?
Yeah, we would get the ads. So things like different kinds of foods or different restaurants. I was always obsessed with all the different advertising for restaurants that I would see and be like, oh, why don't we have that? Like Jack in the Box, and was it Red Lobster? Is that the one who always had the ads for different shrimp scampi? Yeah. I remember. That was a big one. All the ads for seafood dinners, and Angus Steakhouse, was that one?
Black Angus.
Yeah, Black Angus. Yeah, so there was a bucket list for my future trips to the States.
So was it like a big thing going to the U.S., or was like, you tell, oh, I'm going to America, and the people say, oh, you're going to America? Like, oh, you stepped in America? Ugh.
No. I didn't learn about that until later. There was some passive-aggressive sort of opinions about Americans. But as a kid, no, it was fascinating. And going to Disneyland was a big deal, which I still have yet to do. But it was something that was really exciting. To go to the States was like, it was something that you really wanted to do. And as cross-border shopping was a really big deal as well. So for me, I lived about 4 hours from the border. But as I got a little bit older, that was like a really cool thing to do. Just go across the border, because everything was cheaper in those days. And you'd gas up your car in the States, and you'd go to the grocery store and just fill your car with all the things we didn't have, like all the soft drinks like Cherry Coke and Cherry 7-Up, and just bags of chips that we didn't have in Canada. It was really fun.
So close, but so far away, right?
I know, it's like a different world, because also in Canada, we've got the metric system. So you go over to the States and everything is a little bit different. You've got gallons of milk. So I remember people had gallons of milk in their shopping carts, all the Canadians. Waiting in a huge queue to get across the States.
Penny, we were talking earlier before we chatted with you, and I had an experience of going to the Back to the Future the first week it was out, and I was excited because cherry Pepsi, it was the first time I could get it like from the soda fountain at the movies. And I thought, oh wait, Michael J. Fox is Canadian.
Oh yeah. Canadian stars that go over to the States are a big deal in Canada. We worship them. So Michael J. Fox was a very big thing. I had the poster. Yeah, we love him.
Oh, I love him too. I love him since he was Alex P. Keaton.
Oh, me too.
So back with some other things we were thinking about. We were also talking about movies, so we'll go back to the Cherry Pepsi. But E.T., I don't know if you guys know that. So when E.T. was being filmed, they went to M&M's and asked to use them so Elliot could lure him out. And they said, no, we don't know what this is and we don't really want to be a part of it. So that's when they went to Reese's. And they said, oh, we've got this new candy, Reese's Pieces. You can use that. And that was the beginning of part of the boom of Reese's Pieces. So that being in movie was really influential. And then you go on to different TV shows. So what are some of the TV shows that you can think of things that were in?
Oh, geez. Well, the obvious one, Seinfeld. I think with all the cereal and the Junior Mints episode.
That is the classic, that Junior Mints.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And that's like a candy that's been out in America for eons, And it wasn't until it was on Seinfeld that it really gained in the popularity.
That and Jujubes when Elaine goes to the movies, because in the North America we have like the theater boxes, so the sort of square boxes, where here you kind of don't have the same thing. And Jujubes you could always get, and Raisinets and Goobers and Red Vines. Did you guys have Red Vines?
No, what's that?
It's like it's sort of like a red licorice.
A red licorice. That's huge. I think we have the Canadian version. That's huge in Canada, is red licorice.
Oh, the best thing is you bite both ends off at the movies, right? And you put it and use it as a straw in your Coke.
Yeah, exactly. And it flavors it, doesn't it?
It's magic.
I actually forgot about that. Ours are called Twizzlers. Do you have the Twizzlers brand?
Yes, we carry those here too. But I think it's like a Coke and Pepsi thing.
And you know what I was thinking too? I was thinking that there was always the jumbo-sized versions of all those candies for the movies which you couldn't necessarily get at the grocery store. Like now it's changed, but you used to be able to get like the jumbo pack of Twizzlers to watch your movie or to share with somebody else.
Yeah, and going back on what Barbara was saying, it is the people that like Red Vines don't like Twizzlers and vice versa.
Oh, controversial.
Yeah, it is like, oh, well, we're out of Red Vines. You want Twizzlers? No, I don't want that, and the other people say the same thing.
And Canadians are very particular about things like that because it's nostalgia.
Yeah, and you mentioned with Steinfeld, one of the things also that brought to light there was a big treat in New York was the black and white cookie.
Oh yeah.
Which is like a piece of cake. It's more of a cake than a cookie, with black and white icing on it. And the icing didn't have any flavor. It was just like sugared icing and with food coloring in it. But, it was always a big thing at all the bakeries there.
And they did like a huge skit on it where he's like, it's the perfect sort of ebony and ivory. This is like people getting along in the world. The black and white cookie.
Yeah. How great is that?
Oh, well, you know what? Stranger Things. They had Eggos in it.
Oh, yes. How much do I miss Eggos? Do you have Eggos at the shop?
We usually do, but we're waiting for and everything's got disturbed over in the U.S. on getting things out, and that was one of them. But they promised to us in a few weeks. So Eggos and also Stranger Things, and there's loads of stuff that they promote on that show. Nilla wafers and Coke and Pringles, Little Debbie's.
Yeah, because it's
Nutty Bar
comfort food. So because that's just like watching your childhood again when you watch.
Yeah, that's right.
I loved it.
That movie that TV series has got so much 80s nostalgia.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I know, it's great.
All the way down to Winona Ryder playing someone's mother.
Yeah, I know.
And also, like 30 Rock. I love Liz Lemon's Breakfast of Champions, which is a box of Pop-Tarts. I love it.
Geez, I never got into that. I need to look that up on Netflix.
Well, now they even got into Pop-Tarts. Well, they came on with special ones. Like they had Dunkin' Donuts Pop-Tarts, with coffee flavored.
Yeah.
They were quite good. And now they have Fruit Loop Pop-Tarts.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
And that's such a nostalgic food as well. Like I remember those, in the 70s we were eating those Pop-Tarts, and they're still around.
And you know something? Pop-Tarts are pretty famous throughout the world. There's only one country, guess which country, that doesn't sell any Pop-Tarts?
I don't know.
Oh, Time's up. Mexico.
Oh,
Really?
really?
Because they don't have toasters in Mexico. They don't have, their bread is tortillas.
That's why they're all coming over the border, because they're like those. We got to get some Pop-Tarts.
Yeah. But they don't need a toaster because they don't use white bread. Their bread, their national bread is a tortilla.
Well, on the other side of the other border, so let's go back to some Canadian candy.
Oh, yes, exactly.
What do you have? Like if I was hopping over the border, which I think a few Americans are doing at the moment, what would I be getting?
Oh, well, that's a good question because I don't even know. But I know that what I get my best friend to bring when she comes
Yes.
to visit me from Canada is I get her to fill up that suitcase with Hawkins cheesies.
Ooh.
And that's a hint. If USA Foods is looking to bring some over, oh, the most delicious cheesies. And coffee crisp, of course. I think Macintosh toffee was a big one back in the day. Red licorice, craft dinner, Canadian craft dinner. I know that South Park makes fun of the Canadians and the flatulence that they have from eating too much craft dinner, which may
That's
or may
a
not
price
be
well
true.
paid.
Oh, ketchup chips, that's a big
Yeah,
one.
it's unfortunate the Australian government frowns upon anything that comes from anywhere else that has any wherewithal of having dairy, eggs, meat, poultry, even if it's been processed, cured, nothing will ever live from it. It's a problem.
my
Oh
goodness.
no, that's I had a big thing one time and with an inspector and it had powdered chicken flavoring in it, like dehydrated chicken flavoring, like less than 2%. And he gave me this tough time. This is when the Asian bird flu was going around. And the guy goes, I said to him, here's what do you think is unsafe about this? He said, I said to him, you think that one particle out of this is going to fly up into the air, go all the way to to where the chicken farms are, come down, go into that little shed that they're in, and go into the nostril of a chicken and infect it? I said, do you know who makes this? I said, it's made by Kraft. I said to him, have you ever heard of Kraft before?
This is why we try to keep you away when the inspectors come, Phil.
I know.
See, it's funny how, like, when we miss things, even when we're away for, like, we've all been here for years, but we've had, like, musical acts come over, and it always blows my mind a little bit, because I think you're not away from home that long, but they'll have a rider where they need things from, that they want from America. And in the old days, cranberry juice used to be impossible to find here, but you used to have to try to find it for people. So we've had people here. And we've had, like, I remember personally dealing like Miley Cyrus when she came, which was a big deal. She wanted chiclets. She bought all the chiclets gum that we had in the store.
Oh, how funny.
It was like, and then Justin Bieber, which goes back to a Canadian candy as well, because I think he was going out with Selena Gomez, and I think she's vegan, or they're both were vegan at the time, and they wanted Swedish fish. So
Is it Swedish berries? Because I looked that up. I was like, Swedish fish.
they look like fish.
Oh, I don't know this. I don't know this.
And then we had Elton John. He, of all the things that he wanted, was A&W root beer.
Oh, yes.
Well, I understand that.
Me
and
too.
Yeah.
Billy Joel his person was really cool because he wanted, I forgot what it was. It was a diet, say it was Diet Dr. Pepper, and we didn't have it, unfortunately. He goes, just give me any diet drink you want. Billy doesn't care. He just wants a soda and wants a diet. It's like, of all the people in the world, he's been around forever and he's the most laid back person.
Yeah, but I think probably the most popular item has always been Snapple. That's been on a lot of riders. And then we had one that we had this young fellow working for us, and he's Canadian, and he was playing for the Melbourne Ice, playing ice hockey here. And he was in the back packing orders for our mail order. And he comes across one with Clamato.
Oh, yeah.
And he looks at it, and it had the billing address was back in Canada. And it was shipped to an agent over here in Australia. And it was the billing address was Neil Young.
Oh, wow.
What?
Out in Toronto.
Really?
So So he was all excited. Look, I'm shipping this to Neil Young, you know.
Oh, that's cool.
We had Carrie Fisher bought out all of our Diet Peach Snapple one time, and I was so excited because I was like, I'm touching the stuff Princess Leia's
Oh
going
my
to touch
God.
soon. It
That
was
is
very-
beyond cool.
Now, we have to talk about Penny does the most amazing cakes, beautiful cakes, and we will talk about her website and her Facebook page. You need to have a look. But because of you doing special cakes, do you ever do candy themed cakes for anyone?
Yeah, those have been huge over the past few years. The candy themed drip cakes. And that one's kind of cool because you get to just incorporate all those nostalgic treats that somebody loves. So I love those ones. You can incorporate ones with different shapes and different flavors. Yeah, those have been very popular over the past few years.
Oh, yeah, and I can highly recommend them. She just did a cake for my daughter's ISO 18th birthday.
We're doing a lot of ISO cakes, a lot of mini versions of cakes.
Well, speaking of cakes, now if you really want to get impressed, go over to Penny's site, Cleopatra Cakes. So Penny, give us a little blurb about yourself. Come on, give yourself a little ad.
Oh, geez. Well, I've been doing cake making or cake decorating for probably just over a decade. And mostly I love doing sculpted cakes and big showpiece cakes. So a lot of times I'll enter the Melbourne show because I get to really flex my artistic side of myself. So it's fun to be able to do those ones because you don't have a client's brief. You can do whatever you want. So I really love doing the more artistic kind of cake making, but I do it all. So yeah, mostly it's decorative cake that I
And
work with.
how are you on awards? You got some blue medals?
Yeah, I
Or blue
got
ribbon?
Best in Show at the Royal Melbourne Show for I did a cake of my dog and my cat, but I did them in a Elizabethan clothing. And yeah, and I've gotten first place a few times at the Cake Bakes and Sweets show, and yeah, so I've done all right with the
A few times, very modest. Yeah. So your website is CleopatraCakeArt.com.
That's it.
That's
That's
it.
it.
No day AU. Okay.
No, it's just CleopatraCakeArt.com. Yep, or Cleopatra Cakes, and usually the website comes up as soon as you pop that in the Google.
There you go. Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
You know, go on the website, look at all those great cake creations.
Yes, that's what they
from
are.
Penny. And it's Penny Bunz, not like in Bunt Cake.
No, it's BUNZ.
Now, do you say Z in Canada or
Yeah,
Z?
so you say Z, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, there you go. No, we say Z. We
So
love
you-
to be different.
the Empire has spoken.
Oh, God.
Thank
That's
you.
another show, right? The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Penny, for spending some of your morning with us. We really appreciate it. And what we will do when we come back, we'll be talking about and introing our secret code.
Thanks for having me. I loved it.
Okay, now you're waiting for it. Here's our secret code for the week. Secret code is Seinfeld. Now you can use that secret code on online shopping or click and collect. It's not valid in the store, so if you want to pick it up in the store, do a click and collect, and you can get your specials on that way. So speaking of the store is open Monday through Saturday, right? Every day of the week except for Sunday during the lockdown. And our hours are 10 to 5, and we're at 73 Cochrane's Road, Moorabbin.
And we also have an email address. If you guys want to talk about what we've talked about today or tell us about your favorite candies, retro candies, memories, all that good stuff, you can please send us a note at podcast@usafoods.com.au.
Now, do we have any listeners that emailed us this week, Bob?
We did. We had our persistent listener named Leslie. First of all, she sent me an email saying, I haven't listened to the show yet. I'm going to send you an email. So that was handy. And then now she corrected me on a few things last week, which I appreciate greatly. I talked about the trilogy in Cajun cooking. And she said it's bell pepper, which is capsicum here, bell pepper, onion, and celery. And if you add garlic, it's called the Pope. And she also mentioned Hoppin' John, which you can have as a side dish. Her family has it as a side dish at Christmas or for good luck on New Year's Day. So that was this. And also, we have another listener we're talking about getting a recipe for Thanksgiving, but I'm going to hang on to that one until we get to Thanksgiving.
Okay. So what's next? National Nosh.
My favorite.
Candy lips and honey hips make me wanna cry.
So today,
Yes.
Wednesday, is National Chocolate Covered Insect Days.
Right. Does it need a day? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I guess it does need a day. Have you ever eaten any insects?
I have. I've eaten
Knowingly.
crickets. Yes, I've knowingly eaten crickets and chocolate-covered crickets.
I had crickets once at a food show. That was about it. But I'll give you a funny story. Now, this is a true story, okay? So this goes way back. We used to have this summer home that we shared with the rest of the family in Middle Island, Long Island, right? Mm-hmm. So my Uncle Joey was like the comedian of the family. And he was always like trying to be the first one up because first one up always got the best of the leftovers to take for lunch, got the first choice of what was there for breakfast.
Yep.
So one morning he got up on a Sunday morning, he goes down to the kitchen, right, puts on the coffee, sits down and starts eating the donuts that they bought the day before. Dad comes down by Aunt Connie. Aunt Connie said, Joey, what are you doing? He goes, I'm having a cup of coffee with donuts. He says, Joey, don't you see what's on the donuts? He didn't put his glasses on. You see what's on the donuts? He goes, yeah, sprinkles. He says, no, put your glasses on, Joey. It's full of ants. It's a true story. So anyway.
I don't know if the lesson is to put your glasses on before you eat or turn the light on.
Yeah, put your glasses on before you eat. There you go. I know he was colorblind, but I didn't think he could not tell what was moving and not moving.
Anyway. Sprinkles should not move. That should be your first test.
Yeah, but they say that ants taste a bit peppery, so I guess he thought they were like a savory type of donut.
I'll take your word for it, Phil. I'm not going there. We also have National Dessert Day. So
that's a great day.
That would be because desserts are magic. Desserts for breakfast. I try to have a dessert after breakfast, a dessert after lunch, and a dessert after dinner if I can. On a good day, I do that.
That would be a good day. 3 out of 3. You're batting 1,000.
That's right. Now tomorrow is National Chicken Cacciatore Day.
Oh, I like to cook, right?
I know.
And being part Italian, chicken cacciatore I grew up with. My father used to make chicken cacciatore to die for. I cannot, no matter what I do, try to duplicate his recipe and the way why didn't I just watch what he was doing? But my father made chicken cacciatore that was just unbelievable.
Oh, I adore it. I love anything with a beautiful tomato sauce. I love chicken, so that's perfect for me. But and then it's also National Roast Pheasant Day.
Yeah, pheasants. I guess that's the Martha Stewart of birds to eat.
Well, my Uncle Jimmy, so my great uncle and my grandfather used to go hunting. They hunted everything. But the lesson I learned when you went to Uncle Jimmy and Aunt Agnes's house, when you had pheasant for Christmas Eve or whatever you were there for, you didn't want to bite down completely because you might get a little bit of buckshot that you might have to spit out.
Well, one time my father was working out in Long Island. We lived in Brooklyn, right?
Yes.
And he comes home. This was like right before Easter. He comes home with 2 live pheasants from a pheasant farm out there.
Live?
And they sat in the bathtub until it was the day. And nobody, they end up almost being like pets. Nobody ate it. My mother's going, who's going to eat it? Blah, blah, blah. So my father killed the peasants, plucked them or whatever. They cooked them. And between my father and my brother-in-law, Norman, who I think I mentioned in the previous episode. So Norman, coming from Kansas, wow, this was a big treat, having pheasants. So those 2 ate the 2 pheasants, my father and Norman.
Oh, that would have been a big meal. That would have been a big meal that went for a couple of
Well, they were little birds. I mean, they're fluffy, but, there's not much meat on them. Friday is National Liqueur Day. Here's another great day.
That's fancy. It's fancy liquor, which, goes well with me as well. I think I'm trying to think of American liqueurs, and all I could think of originally was, so Wild Turkey has one. And
Yeah, and
what else?
yeah, and then my brother-in-law introduced us to one, but I believe it was Canadian. I think it was Yukon Jack, which was a sweetened Canadian whiskey, sort of like on the same thing of Drambuie and the ones that come out by Gentleman Jack and things like that. So it's like a very sweet, robust, you know, liqueur made from a whiskey.
Something over ice on a cold winter's evening, I would think.
But like Frangelico, I remember the phrase of Frangelico, and then I mixed it up with chocolate ice cream and put Frangelico in it and had that on a nice hot day outside, and that was pretty cool.
I can go through Bailey's over ice pretty well myself. Now, we also have, this is very ambiguous, World Food Day. It's pretty open.
Yeah, it's open to everything. Just go and eat.
Again, my sort of day.
Yeah. So on Saturday, here's one for the Italians, is National Pasta Day. Now in my house, we never had pasta. We only had macaroni.
Oh, is that what you guys
That's what we called it. Yeah, macaroni.
I think my kids always just called it spaghetti. It was either twisty spaghetti or the spaghetti with the hole in it, which would be penne.
Or I was going to say the spaghetti with the hole. Is that SpaghettiOs?
No, I didn't get to do that. But we share a love of the pasta with sand. So listen, like I do it with olive oil. So I get a pasta, I cook it, and then I saute it in olive oil, garlic, and breadcrumbs.
Yeah, aglio olio. Yeah,
that's right, and breadcrumbs.
Yeah, you got toasted breadcrumbs and a little bit of cheese in that. Yeah, it's quite nice. Very much of a peasant food, but one of my favorites, that is. Yeah.
Oh, I love that one.
If I could only say it in Italian, but it is translated as pasta with sand.
Yeah, my kids used to love it. That would be the one thing I could get into them. Now, I have a family connection to this other day that is for Saturday. It's Four Prunes Day. My cousin had a prune and raisin farm, which would be a grape and plum farm, but they dried them and produced raisins and prunes. But do you want to know why it's 4, not 3 or 2?
I could imagine. Well, if you went to your cousin's house, if you had 4 prunes, I guess you were really going pretty good.
That's right. And you wanted to make sure you didn't do that before the 3-hour drive back home.
Yeah, my wife, when we lived in Jersey, exit 117, for those who want to know, Jeanette she hasn't made it in ages, but we used to make a crown roasted pork for like some of the holidays. And that had prunes that were marinated overnight in brandy.
Oh, yum.
So you made the crown, and then it's like a stuffing done with the prunes into it, and then you roasted it. Quite nice.
Ooh, that goes back to just like family dinners, and that would be fantastic. Oh, actually, we should get to Sunday because this has something to do with our guest as well. It's National Chocolate Cupcake Day coming up. Ooh. There's no bad chocolate cupcakes.
No, there isn't. I'm just trying to think if there is a bad. No, not even the Hostess cupcakes are really good.
Yeah, they all have good. And what's happening on Monday? This is going to be one of my faves.
Seafood Bisque Day.
Oh my God, I love seafood bisque. I love lobster bisque. I love crab bisque. I just love a bisque.
You're a biscuity girl.
I am. I wonder if the soup Nazi would have liked me. He had a bisque.
No soup today. You want soup? And then on Tuesday, National Brandy. What did we just talk about? Brandied Fruit Day, or is that like those dried fruits, right?
Well, I think so, but that kind of goes back with. You could do brandied prunes, like you were talking about with Jeanette making the roast with that, and then you can, and the liqueur one. So I think that's
or you could throw the liquid out of the maraschino cherries and fill that up with brandy or any type of whiskey.
Oh yeah, you gave me a hint with that. I filled mine with bourbon. Fantastic.
Ooh, yeah.
I think I have a theme going here. Actually, that's probably not the best.
Yeah, well, you fill it up with bourbon, and that goes into your Manhattan, and you're all done. And next week's show is it's going to be about greasy food. We
Oh,
all like greasy food. I had some greasy food yesterday. It just had to have some potato cakes, which was pretty greasy.
oh yeah.
And the lady put it in the bag. She says, "Oh, they're still hot." By the time I walked back to the shop here, the bag was translucent.
I was going to say, you can see through the bag. That's a sign of a good potato cake. And we're going to be talking about it because we'll be hitting the AFL finals, the NRL finals, the World Series will be happening. And I was looking up some odd foods that they sell at baseball parks around the country. And
it's not just hot dogs anymore.
No, there's some interesting things, and we'll be talking about that next week. And actually, that's another thing at podcastusafoods.com.au. What's the weirdest thing you've had at a ballpark? That'll help us talk next week.
There you go. And from every angle, there's so many different things to eat now at the ball game. Again, it's gone beyond the hot dogs and the pretzels, and of course Cracker Jacks. So we're gonna have a special guest coming in from overseas, from the US of A. So we'll keep that a secret until next week. But we will have some baseball aficionados talking on the podcast.
That's right. And don't forget, if you subscribe to us, Apple, Stitcher, or Spotify, in the next few days, that'll just pop up for you next week, and you won't even have to hunt around for it.
We got to get those pop-ups going. So anyway, this is where I'm going to bug out of here, since that was coming up on Wednesday, the bug day. So and find some bugs and chocolate coat them. I'll be out of here till next week. So goodbye, y'all.
I'll see you later, dude. And we'll talk next week.
Well, I woke up in the morning, put on my slippers, went to the kitchen and dined. And oh, what a feeling when my soul went through the ceiling and up upon the heaven I arrived. It's too low.